Hata kukiwa kuzuri unashindwa nini mbaya. Machozi ya perpetrator inaweza dilute damu ya victim ilimwagika. After all is said and done,
something that you mentioned really comes out strongly, even when you are having the student conversation. A lot of them feel like the electioneering process has been rigged and over-rigged, so much so that they honestly feel that their votes don't count, and that it is a common feeling that they will not even be participating in the 22 general elections. So this is tied to a lot of corruption in the IEBC, in the electoral process, and they even feel like the idea of Kenya being a democracy is just a story, that we do not have real democracy. What would you say to that?
Well, again, when you look at the elections historically in this country, if you ask me, because I witnessed, I was in Standard 4 when the first election which involved Africans took place in 57, all right? And also the elections in 1963, they were run by the colonial administration. And actually they were fair. Maybe those are the only elections that we had in this country that were fair. It's very sad that the only elections that we had that were free, fair, credible, and acceptable took place during the colonial period. During the independence period, for example, when the first election that took place was 69, and Kanu disqualified all the KPU candidates in the civic elections, and then proceeded to ban KPU and detain Odinga, and other people. So you had then what was called the one-party dictatorship. And in 1988, you had what was called Mulolongo, right? People just queuing up behind their candidates, and it was corruption in broad daylight. Because what they did was, you remember, they had photographs, of candidates, and people would then queue up, behind whoever was holding the photograph. And what they did in certain cases was just to take the photograph and put it in front of the longest queue, and you rigged. There are a lot of people who are rigged that way. Kibaki was almost rigged in Odhaya. That's when he made the famous statement that rigging elections takes intelligence, because it was almost rigged. So that is 1888, you come to 1992, the Electoral Commission is still captured, all right? 97, Electoral Commission is captured. 2022, 2002, when NAC won, all right? That could, that election could not be rigged, because they knew that if IEC rigged that election, there was going to be a revolution, all right? Moi had left, and there was no way Uhuru was going to win that election. And he conceded very quickly, all right? So there are cases where elections are only free and fair if people make it clear that there will be a revolution if that election is not free and fair. And that was 2002. It's the only time when people voted and they knew that this election couldn't be lost, all right? And the people were courageous, and they were focused on making sure that there were no stealing and whatever. But what I was saying is the ordinary people, even the Wanjikos, they know how to vote, right? Then the educated people in in IBC cannot count. These are people who have degrees, they can't count. Now they are brought in technology, which is stealing elections. I mean, you have heard of algorithms and whatever, all right?
Yeah, yeah.
They are brought in PR agencies that tell lies about candidates and so forth. So the election, for me, we've got to think very, very seriously about what the young people are talking about, democracy. What kind of democracy is it? Okay, and I basically believe that if the elections were free, fair, and credible, these people who abolish elections, yeah, they would just say, no, it can't happen. You know, there was a guy in, I think it was Lesotho called Chief Lebwa Jonathan, who lost an election. But he said, no, I could not have lost that election. If the election was free and fair, how did I lose? Okay? So, and that's the problem of going to referendum when they are basically, they know they won't lose. You know, yeah, so why should we as Kenyan people allow this fraudulent referendum? We can see clearly it's going to be rigged. They have a, you know, they want to change the election so that power is shared in the way they want. And I think going forward, we've got to think very, very seriously about electoral justice. And I think if we just talk about physical voting, okay, it's not enough. It's not enough. You remember in 2017, they didn't even open the servers. They were told to open the servers, and I'm telling you, if the servers were opened, you would have been surprised. In 2013, when we had the presidential petition, we asked for what is called scrutiny of the 33,400 polling stations. And it was going on well, you know, but because the petition has to be had in 14 days, it wasn't completed. So, but we knew that if we counted everything, we would have seen a global view of the election. And I'm sure we would have seen rigging in opposition, you know, areas, and rigging all over the place, because that's what they do. So we've got to find out whether, you know, the democracy based on elections that are rigged from the word go, and they start rigging by denying potential voters ID cards, so they don't register. So you have, like in this country, if the figures are right, that the young people under 35 are, I don't know, 67% and so forth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you disenfranchise them, that's it. That's it. Look at what is happening in Tanzania. You know, people being disqualified, you know, so that the ruling party just has a walkover. So that's my take on the elections. Yeah.
So seeing as you've been in the struggle and you've been an activist for very long, perhaps you could just tell us what inspired you and some of the highlights, and in those very moments, very low moments, what keeps you going?
Well, I think my activism, if I can trace it back, I'll trace it back to my community in Kitui, all right?
Okay.
I grew up in a small community in Kitui, but a community that was very, I would say, very socialist, in the sense that there were 5 rich people in the community who were generous, right? You know, there was communal grazing, there was communal watering holes, you know, And kids we didn't go hungry. You know, we were kids of the entire
The
community.
community, yeah.
Yeah, so if you misbehaved, you could be punished by any woman, any older person, and then they take you back to your house and you'll be beaten, you know, again. So there was a kind of a collective community during colonialism that cared for each other. Okay, even when I passed my exams, my father was a tailor. The community was there, you know, to help. The county council was also helping. So I kind of grew up understanding that resources have to be shared equitably, and a good community should not have people who are sleeping, who sleep hungry. All right, when other people can you know, help out. And I also grew up hating two kinds of people. I hated chiefs, colonial chiefs, with a passion, because I could see their cruelty. Because when you are a kid, you know who is cruel and who is not.
Yeah.
So the chiefs and some teachers who are also very cruel. All right. So I developed that sense of resisting oppressors, right? And I took that to, you know, to secondary school, to Strathmore. And when I went to Dar es Salaam to read law, this is when Dar es Salaam is the mecca of revolution. So, you know, my community vision was reinforced intellectually.
Yeah.
You know, in Dar es Salaam. But I think the thing that really mobilized me against oppressive systems is when I was detained in 1982 for no reason at all. It's just that in the university, we were calling for academic freedom, which is a right for scholars and students.
Yeah.
And I was Secretary General of the Union. So the leadership was arrested and detained, right? And in detention, I basically said that I'll fight the system until I die. I will fight oppression until, you know, whenever I get a chance to do something, I'll do it. And that's basically it. I got to a situation where in the 80s, you get to a situation where death doesn't scare you, because a lot of people are better dead than alive anyway under these circumstances. Okay,
it's
so
true.
yeah, you might just die of corona, you know. So why should people, you know, be afraid, you know? And I'm not saying that you know, because I'm old, but I'm saying when I was 35,
Yeah.
teaching in the university, I didn't care about death. I was just like that young woman called Wajira, Juliet, who was basically saying the situation is such that you shouldn't be afraid. You just have to change. The Mau Mau teaches us that people have to get killed for change to happen.
Yeah.
So that's what I call revolutionary oxygen. You know, and I always think that something better is going to happen. I've seen Kenya change, and you know, keeps on changing. So there's that revolutionary optimism, which is also good.
Yeah.
So that you don't give up and you don't succumb to, you know, the religious myth that you know, heaven is going to be a better place for poor people. We want heaven on earth. So tell the pastors that we want heaven on earth now. We
Yeah.
don't know. Nobody has come back to tell us that heaven has milk and honey. We don't know. So why can't we get that milk and honey now from our own resources, right? That's what people are asking. They're
Yeah.
asking for water because there are resources for that. So anyway, so I don't want to go into religion because you wait until I form my own church and then you can come to it.
Could you tell us a little bit more about those moments when you saw things getting better and you thought perhaps the fruits of my activism are actually paying off? Some of those highlights for you.
Yeah, one clear highlight is the constitution making itself. You know, we started pushing for new constitutions after independence.
Yeah.
Okay, because the independence constitution was problematic. It was being changed, and the president control, basically changing the constitution so that the president had more powers and so forth. And there's a lot that have been written about that. If you read the PhD written by Githu Muigai, the former Attorney General,
Yeah.
is a brilliant thesis about those amendments from the 60s. So constitution making is something that I've been involved in since the 70s, and I've seen concessions being made. Okay, and I've realized that when people struggle for something, once you get concessions, you consolidate them, and then you ask for more. And that's the history of the Constitution up to 2010. All right. And now, it's very clear to everybody in this country that once you get a constitution also, implementation is a struggle. All right? You don't think that they are going to give you what the constitution gives you on a silver platter. No, the constitution, continues. So you are right that I have had, in my life, I've seen struggles, victories happen because of, struggles. I've seen resistance happen, by lecturers, by university students, by workers, by women. Okay, a lot of people associate the second liberation with Ford, all right?
Yeah.
But that is not true. The people who sparked the second liberation were women, Akina Wangari Maathai, Njeri Kabeberi, and the mothers, all right?
Okay.
Of the detainees. You had that these women who camped at Uhuru Park. Have you heard that story?
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, those are women, Mama Koigi and the other women whose sons were in detention. They are the ones who demonstrated. Okay, and there were tear gas, but All Saints Cathedral gave them the bunker to stay there. All right, and the second liberation revolved around those women. Okay, they are the ones who gave Kina Odinga and others courage, to go and come forward. So we've seen this, these small struggles, these small resistances happen. In 1997, everybody knows about Joya, and Cape Town Bati.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people who even wrote the song that you sing all the time, the alternative national anthem. Okay, the one that people sing. You are familiar with it because PAWA 254 always has it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was written by young people in 1997 in Limuru. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at the trajectory of oppression and resistance, and some gains are being made, you feel encouraged. Yeah.
Just to take us back, when you speak about growing up in Kitui, in an environment that was a bit socialist, that also came out very strongly in our discussions with other students, because they feel maybe just maybe that our way out of corruption could be that we try a different ideology. A lot of them feel like our capitalist systems are to blame, because we measure respect, honor, integrity based on how much someone has acquired, and it is also seen in how people are awarded in government and with positions. So do you think that maybe if you were to switch from capitalism, that things would somehow be better, that there would be more humanity?
That's a great question, and I think that young people should debate. All right, but again, you have to debate it historically. At the moment, right?
Yeah.
Capitalism, which we now call Neo-Liberalism, right? Is totally discredited. Okay, but so is socialism. Also is being critiqued because of what happened in Soviet Union, what happened in China, Cuba, Vietnam, and Eastern Europe. All right. So we reached a stage where the two major paradigms, as they are called, right? Capitalism and socialism, all right, are being critiqued, because what happened in Soviet Union was to create a class that actually controlled the resources, all right? And there was oppression and so forth. There's a lot that has been written about that, which I can share. So we are reaching a stage, and this is where the constitution is important. When you look at the constitution, the Kenyan constitution is social democratic, all right?
Okay.
Social democracy means mitigating capitalism. Okay. So you are saying that although you have a system that puts profits before people, all right, it has to be mitigated, and you mitigate it this way. You basically say the resources will go to the counties as well, all right? So that you change that. You look at Article 43, and it says that there is the right to food, housing, clean environment, the right to work, social security, the right to food is also there, all right? So you are asking the state, to mitigate a situation where poverty is and inequality, okay, continues, okay? And that's what the Constitution had in mind. When you look at what the Constitution says about land, for example, all right? The land that was grabbed, public land that was grabbed, has to be returned, all right? Leases that were given to foreigners were reduced to, they were freehold, so they've been reduced to 99 years, okay? Which means after 99 years, a government can decide what to do with that land, all right? If it's this lands owned by multinationals, whether it's in Kericho, for example, where the company called James Finley Kenya, right? It's a colonial company that owns the tea plantations. So if you give them 99 year lease, you have to think what to do when the 99 years elapse. And that's a window in the constitution which basically says, with a government that is committed to the welfare of the people, that land can be held in trust by the National Land Commission, all right, and be made be made accessible for use by people who have no land, all right? Because land is so critical, right? It is very, 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 very critical. If you don't have a place where you can grow crops, then you won't be able to eat. Then the other thing that the constitution talks about is the community land system, which basically says, like in NFD, people shouldn't register their land. You know, you could hold the land the way my community, you know, in the 50s held land. It was for the community, you know, and you just used it. Then later it changed so that, you know, clans and families could have land. But you need to have a system where people will have access to land, to the use. And the land should never be commodified, because once land is commodified, people sell it.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
And in my village, I've seen that people who are rich have bought the land of the poor neighbors, and the neighbors have become workers of those rich people. Okay, in the rural areas. So I was saying the constitution, you know, mitigates, all right? And it for me, it creates a basis where people can basically say, well, this mitigation is not enough, all right? You know, we need to change things radically, you know, and that's when people start talking about revolution, so that land can be given to those who need it. There's a lot of land in this country that is kept idle, okay? How do people have 100 hectares of land when there are people who have nothing? So the constitution signals, you know, some improvements, you know, and if our government and our political elite were wise, they would implement the constitution, because it does reduce tensions, you know? Yeah, when, like this case of COVID-19, if I was in power, I would have gone, you know, beyond the call of duty to make sure that people had food when there was a lockdown, to make sure that the police don't attack people, you know, to dismantle the cartels so that water can be given to Korogosho, Mathare, Kibera during this particular period, all right? And that's how ruling groups show humanity, all right? And if they had done that, actually 2022 would be a peaceful election, because people will be seeing that, you know, these leaders are changing.
Yeah.
But they just did the opposite. They did the opposite. So you know, so when the young people are talking about capitalism and socialism and social democracy and what the planet should look like, all right, that is the debate that, you know, should engage everybody in the world, not just in Kenya. You must have a vision of a society that is just, that is free, that is equitable, that is peaceful, because the world can go to war anytime, all right? And prosperous, ecologically safe, all right? Those visions are also in the constitution in a small way. So implementation of the constitution is so critical, because once we implement it, we will see the shortcomings of the constitution, right? And then we can debate what is to be done after that.
Yeah.
But we can't just say, you know, the constitution has issues, and the people who are saying that it has issues are the ones who are opposed to it in the first place.
Yeah.
It's not.
It
So
does
so
not
that
make
debate,
sense.
that debate in my memoir, I have addressed that question. So once it comes out, I've written a long letter to the youth of Kenya and the world about that particular issue, and the way I see it, and the way I see that the world, the way I see the planet is that it risks explosion or implosion, and it has to change. Okay, there is no other way. If the world doesn't change the way it is, it can't continue. It can't continue. And the history records that when things happen the way they're happening, there has to be change. Take our Kenyan example. The British were here for 69 years, 68, yeah, or more, but they were resisted because there is no individual in the world who will not resist oppression. You know that. Whether it's domestic violence, kids or wives being beaten by the father, at some point the father will be resisted. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you are building a world of inequality, all right, where you divide people, it's just for a time. It's just for a time. And the story I tell young people, and you have heard it before, is that with these sovereign debts, the trillions that we owe, right?
Yeah.
Suppose we don't pay. Then the West and the Chinese will come and tell you, you have that 6 hours to leave this country, it doesn't belong to you. What do you think you do? Of course you will fight. You just take arms and fight to save the motherland. Right?
Yeah.
But we don't want to go there. That's why we are saying, we have been discussing this issue and we'll come up with a constitution. Let's implement it. Then see what the weaknesses are and we change it. Yeah. So that we stay peaceful. But the violence comes from the state. It doesn't come from people, right? This country, you demonstrate and you are tear gassed. And the constitution says that should not happen. So I think what we should do while we are discussing these issues in the short term is to make sure that this country is ruled by people who are ready to implement the constitution. That is a basic minimum. We don't allow these fascists continue ruling, okay? If we don't remove them, we will probably have an opposition that can hold them to account, okay? That will be the plan B. That will be the plan B, that they are still in power, but you have opposition. And this time, people's opposition, not of political parties that are bought and then they go and reinforce the dictatorship. That's what has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that debate, if it's on, and we can start the discussions. I think PAWA 254 can start those kind of discussions. There will be very concrete discussions with the young people and telling them what they should do, right? And what is to be done. And that will be very, very great, and I'll participate in it. You can even form small groups where the materials that have been written by people who have thought through these issues can be given, and then people start debating, because I think that is important.
Paka kukiwa kuzuri unashindwa nini mbaya. Machozi ya perpetrator inaweza dilute damu ya victim ilimwagika. After all is said and done, all will be said, nothing will be done.